Hey everybody, this is Filter Starcraft and welcome back to episode number 12 of my Bronze to Master series. The game in the background is a game where the Zerg player attempts to bust me really early on in the game. I hold it without really losing any SCVs. I lose a good chunk of my army, but from that point on the game is basically over. He did almost no damage. He killed a few depots, which is annoying, but he wasn't in the game after that fact. So that's what you're going to see there. This is the second episode in a 3-part series. This particular episode is aimed at Terran versus Zerg specifically. We're going to take a look at two build variations. One's going to be a very extreme variation, which is an extreme variation of what we've been doing, but it's a very standard play that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. The other one's going to be a really cool one that's just recently started to show up, and you've seen players like Polt execute this particular style. So we're going to rip that off a little bit, and it works really well. I've been playing against one of my friends who's been practicing for a tournament, and I've had a lot of good luck in games against him with it. So pretty cool play, as well as on just regular ladder. It's been killing people. So we're going to take a look at those two today. As always, these videos are aimed at people that can play and execute well the builds up to the platinum level that I've been kind of showing off here. So if you're not quite there yet, you're not quite comfortable, feel free to try them out and have a bit of fun with it, because there's nothing wrong with having fun with the game. That's the reason why we all play. But at the same time, you're going to have much better success if you are already really strong fundamentally, and you can quickly adapt to changes in the way your resources distribute themselves. Now, the first variation we're going to take a look at is doing Marine Marauder Red Flame Hellion with a transition into Blue Flame Hellions once you pick up your third base. Before that, it's kind of difficult to get them out. You can, if you want, for instance, put your factory on a tech lab and just research the Blue Flame upgrade. I find it's not the biggest difference in the world early on. It's just nice to have a lot of Hellions, so I prefer to stick with the Reactor. If you want to on your own, go right ahead, by all means. Get the Blue Flame upgrade instead of Combat Shield, which is what we're going to get to kind of replace that. Now, this is the build I've been playing the most games with lately. Played it in some Obs games I played. Like I said, my friend who's a Master Zerg has been trying to train for a tournament. I've been playing it against him, and he beat me once out of the games we played. I haven't lost a ladder game with it yet, even though the players are kind of diamondish, so it's not a huge difference, but at the same time it's really strong. There's nothing that it's really weak against. You do get a decent marine count, so if they go for Mutalisks, you can quickly switch into full marine production because you're going to have a lot of barracks at home by the time they do that. If they do go for infestors or like infestor baneling, Marauders do a really good job of dealing with those units. If they get a lot of Zerglings, which is the current trend in the metagame, then your Hellions are just going to roast them alive. So really strong build. I've had people roach rush me, I've had people baneling bust me, and I've been able to hold everything. So I'm really happy with it. And there's no tanks. You don't have to micro tanks. That's pretty fun. I enjoy that. So now, the one big disadvantage to this build is you generate a really big mineral shortage. The only units you're really spending gas on are your Medivacs, which you end up with a lot of, as well as your Marauders, which don't cost very much gas. So you end up with a little bit more gas than you can really use. You don't necessarily need to take a fourth gas at any point, but I do like to do it when I'm taking my third, because at that point, having a little bit of extra gas in the bank if I need it for something is not a terrible idea. Alright, so we're going to jump right into the game here. This will be against a computer, obviously, for purposes of learning. Really simple and easy to do. And let's get a little bit of practice in on this particular play. I've really been enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun to try out. So, again, nothing really changes. We're just going to reassign a reactor to our factory. As I said earlier, if you want to, you can use your factory on a tech lab and grab a really early Infernal Pre-Igniter for Blue Flame. I haven't really done it, so I don't know how well it works. I do know that the Red Flame stuff works extremely well. Had a huge amount of success with it. I've been really happy, so pretty cool. So, again, just stressing that this is not a build order per se. We're just using how we normally put all our buildings up and just changing the units we get. So really simple and straightforward. Not a whole lot of thinking involved. You can go the straight up bio we've been doing before against Zerg, or you can do this style. It's up to you. As well as the one I'm going to show you in the next part of this video. And we're just getting ready to put our barracks back down. There we go. if you take a look and you watch kind of the first, all the videos I do, you watch the first part of the game, it's exactly the same. It's always the 1 Rex expand. 1 Rex expand's one of my favorite builds. We're going to vary it up a little bit in the next part, but for right now we're just going to work off our regular base, which is really simple, straightforward, easy to use. Doesn't require a whole lot of micro or anything really, you just have to execute it well. Also lets you forget about SCVs really early in the game, concentrate on other things, which is a pretty big benefit. Drop that depot down, send this guy out to scout and pull him back just to simulate the last mining time. Raise up that depot, get our orbital up. And it's a computer Zerg, so he's got his overlord in the middle of the map. We're gonna go pick that off. If you do hit the watchtowers on Ohana and they have their overlords in a bad position, it's really easy to pick off. Not a lot of reason not to do it. There we go.
Upgrade complete.
That guy outside. Start our SCV.
Our SCVs are under attack.
Throw up our command center. There we go. And we're going to pick that overlord off, no problem. So, need our next supply depot, drop that down. Leave one of the marines on the tower so we don't see anything coming. And we're going to need our bunker. So, there we go. Everything's looking good, nice and smooth. Look to make our 2 barracks next. And not a whole lot to think about really. Just throw down our barracks. Got an SCV. Drop that down. Get our base up. Next I'm going to look to add on my 2 gas and I'll be laughing. Everything will be looking good. Cancel that 1 marine. That guy didn't rally back, but that's okay. And things are looking good. Getting our gas up. This is where things will deviate a little bit, but not too far. It's super small deviation. Speed of which that's done, so I should probably send those guys over there. A little bit late on the transfer, but not too worried about it. SCV's got to go over sometime. I'm not really losing any mining if they take their time. And I'll throw that over there. Get some marines in our bunker. No point in having it if we're not going to use it. And we're going to go 2 tech labs, 1 reactor. Nice and simple. As soon as we get the gas for it, we're going to throw down our factory as always. Throw that guy back. Can we get that? I think that guy actually mined because apparently I can't click on anything. Alright, so snap out a marauder, throw a factory down there, snap out another marauder, and we're going to need to grab that gas here. So we'll grab our 3rd gas, same time whenever we get our factory. We should get that gas. We need another depot, so let's go ahead and grab that. Send that guy back to work, not the optimal path, but it's okay. Let's squeeze out 2 marines out of that. That's as far as it goes. Alright, so we get a marine off there. We're going to start up Stim, because we still want Stim really early. And we're still going to have the gas for our starport by the time this finishes. So we'll be able to grab a reactor for it. Should we have good rally points? Probably use a depot. So let's get one of those. Start another marauder. Alright, and let's get a factory down, or a starport, sorry. For those guys. There we go. And just change it over. Drop another reactor. Hockey up our starport. Let's get some Hellions going. Get some more marines, because that's what I can afford. I'm going to grab combat shield now. And I'm going to need a depot. For sure. Probably another depot would be a good idea. So we're just going to mix some marines and marauders here as we get the opportunity. Hellion production is the one thing we want constant. That's the only building I'm concerned about making out of. The other ones, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Yeah, so these depots are going to finish a little bit late. And because we're going a little bit more mineral heavy here, there's no room for the engineering bay. But luckily with this build, because we're so gas starved, we can actually do it a little bit later on and just go double upgrades. You can try to do the engineering bay and squeeze it in, but you'll end up losing out on Medivacs and stuff like that because you just don't have the gas to support it properly. Once you get those 2 Medivacs, I'm going to push out. I'm going to try to take my third. Now the one thing about this is the amount of production you have is more than you can sustain. So just keep that in mind. You're not going to be able to constantly make. You see we're over 115 food at 10 minutes and 15 seconds. Combat shield's done, stim's done. I'm going to grab conk. Concussive shell. And then I'm going to push out. Now the one thing about engaging with this army, we're just going to rally everything to a marauder. Rally to that. When you do engage the army, you want marauders to the front, Hellions kind of in the back, and Marines in the middle. Hellions in the back, they still do a ton of damage. Marauders is what you use to tank your baneling hits. So if you have to grab all your marauders and just throw them to the front, here you go ahead. It's kind of what your formation should look like. Obviously it's going to break down a little bit more, but that's what it is. Third's a little bit late, but talking about something else. Now when we take our third, we'll just add another factory. Then at this point, you can see this pretty beefy push. A lot of Zergs are going to struggle to stop that. So at this point, what you can do is kind of go double Eng Bay and add on extra barracks. Just throw down 2 more. You can see you're going to have it's a pretty beefy army. If you leave your base at the right time and you get there, they're going to struggle to stop that. And you can actually, the only thing you want to do is just make sure there's not a bunch of banelings waiting to hit you when you go up a ramp. But if you can position yourself on a ramp like this, what are they going to do? You got Marines in the middle dealing damage. They're just going to have to eat through Marauders with Zerglings. Like, no, that's not going to happen. So, pretty straightforward. Again, now is about the time we start getting blue flame and all that, but I'm trying to show you how to properly handle this army. Like I said, I've had a ton of success with it. Not perfect with it by any stretch, but it's a really powerful army and I quite like it. You can get a ton of production stuff up. The one thing you do want to do is probably take a 4th base a little bit faster than you normally would. So computer GG's, there we go. Pretty simple and straightforward. I'm going to do things a little bit different here. I'm not going to post exact benchmarks. I'm just going to tell you the changes that you're going to do to your regular play that you've been practicing a ton lately. At least hopefully anyway. So what you want to do is instead of getting 2 reactors in 1 tech lab, you're going to get 2 tech labs and 1 reactor. You're then going to put the factory on the reactor when the factory finishes. You're then going to use your barracks to make a reactor for your starport so that when your starport's finished, it still has a reactor. The other thing you're going to do is get Stim First. Stim is still an important upgrade, but when you can afford it, you're going to get combat shields. The reason for that is Stim and combat shields are still going to finish in and around the 10 minutes together if you play it outright, which means they both finish when you attack, which is unbelievable. Now, because you're going for Hellions and you're spending so much money on Marauders, you're spending so much money on Marines, you're spending so much money on Hellions, you simply can't afford the engineering bay, and you especially can't afford it if you're getting combat shields. So you're going to skip that engineering bay. Once you get a good number of Hellions and you get all your upgrades and your first 2 Medivacs are out, that's your trigger to attack. So you can simply make an attack from there, take your third, add on your barracks as you normally would, but you want to keep making Hellions. You can actually get away with a double engineering bay when you're taking your thirds, so you can get +1, +1 at the same time, and then move right into +2, +2. You also want to get another factory, put a tech lab on that, and research blue flame. So if the Zerg continues to try to get Zerglings to counteract your Hellions are going to be even stronger. You don't necessarily need to rush blue flame. although as I said in the video when I was doing the build, you can get it earlier if you want. You do sacrifice combat shields, which to me doesn't feel like a good trade-off, even though you're not getting that many Marines. Alright, we're going to jump into another practice game here. This particular game, I'm going to show you something falls into the category of an extreme deviation. So, changes the core of how we do things, but we're going to rely on our mechanical skill to execute it properly. What I mean by that is, we're still going to try to get to the exact same building group, and the same set of structures, and the same set of upgrades. We're just going to do it a little bit different. So, how we're going to do it different is, this is going to be a Reactor Hellion play. Now, the Reactor Hellion play is super popular. You see pretty much every Terran on the face of the planet doing it. I really like it. I'm starting to struggle with Zerg every now and then, but for the most part, they didn't give me too much trouble when I was playing. But I do have to say that I'd much prefer the first one I talked about, where we're getting the Hellions in the mixture with our Bile. I think that's a lot more fun to play than kind of a Marine tanky style, which is what you end up leading into once you do the Reactor Hellion play. So, we're going to get our barracks here. Everything looks fairly normal up to this point. However, we're going to get a gas on 13. I don't like using food measurements, but it's this early in the game. Doesn't really... no reason not to. Unless you completely screw up, which I've done. I've built supply depots on 8 and all sorts of crazy stuff, but fairly straightforward. Now the idea with this is we want to make our factory basically as soon as we possibly can. So I'm not a huge fan of doing it this way. You do gain map control because you get Hellions out usually before the Zerg has speed. Start making a Marine. Send that guy over. Usually send him about 200, so it's a little bit early, but it's gonna work out here. We're gonna throw that down. You only want to get one Marine when you do this play. You get any more, you end up not having the money to actually do what you want to do. So, just word of advice. It's not always a good thing to send him down, but we're gonna do it. And as soon as this finishes, this guy, typically just making that depot, can usually throw down your factory without causing you too much of a problem, except when he does stuff like that. Runs down, throw down the factory. And that. Hotkey your factory. And we're going to make a reactor on this as soon as we have the gas. Here we go, got a reactor on the way. That should time out nicely. So, what I mean by, it's not exact, but what will happen is factory's going to have to lift off and move over. Now, what we want to do while we wait for that is we're going to want to make our command center. Now, when you do this particular play, you don't have a bunker or anything to stay safe, so command center typically is best on the high ground. So, throw it up on the high ground there. We're going to need a supply depot for those Reactor Hellions. We're getting up. There we go. Just lift that, drop that, up that there, and make 2 Reactor Hellions right away. Oh. And probably need another depot just in case. Throw a tech lab on our barracks. And we're going to get our second pair of Hellions out here. The reason to throw the tech lab on the barracks right away is it means you can start stim or combat shields really early. There we go. 2 sets of Hellions. Usually you wait for about 4. You can move out with 2 if you want. Just kind of check your front tower. You don't want to check too much further than that though. We're going to start stim here. We're not actually making anything out of the barracks, but we are starting stim. We can't afford to make out of our barracks just yet, so we're not going to. Send those Hellions up there. Now I don't need to make any more Hellions, so I'm going to drop that over there. I'm going to throw barracks on there, turn that into an orbital. So I've got 4 Hellions. You can go up to 6. You will see that sometimes. I don't necessarily prefer it myself. And then we're going to add on our 3rd barracks. Really simple, straightforward here. Not doing anything with the factory just yet. We want to get ourselves a starport, so we're going to grab that. Just gonna keep our Marines nice and healthy. Get a tech lab on our factory. The idea with this is you delay your tanks just a little bit. And we're gonna move this guy over. And you want to take your Hellions and just kind of be poking the Zerg while you're doing all this, so it definitely takes a little bit more. He hasn't expanded, so I'm going to pretend like I'm scared. Grab a nice healthy number of SCVs here. Drag them over there. And get our second gas going. And start Marines now. There we go. That down there. Now with this style, you can do some cool stuff, so we're going to do double upgrades. Which means we're going to go for that really quickly. We're going to grab a reactor there. We're going to lift that off, lift that down. We're going to add on our fourth and fifth barracks. Make sure I have my rally point set. So you end up with everything just in a totally backwards order. It's a little bit different. So start those guys there. Really use the set rally point. So, oh no, we made a roach. I gotta pull back here. And we're gonna start +1 attack. And we're gonna be able to start just 1 sec. We're gonna be able to start +1 defense too. So start your upgrades a little bit faster. If you do this kind of powering style, and you end up with a whole bunch of barracks that you can use. And I'm gonna supply block here, which is bad. You do you're a little gas start, but it's not too bad. So still can't really do anything with this factory. I am gonna take my 4th gas here. And just get 2 more depots. Yeah, and I need combat shield, so grab that. And keep making Marines here. Now the idea with this style is you rely on your Marines early. If he does come with a bust or something, you're in a little bit of trouble. It's not too bad though, and then you start getting your tanks out. You can rearrange it a little bit to get a little bit faster tanks, but the trend right now is to get faster upgrades, so that's what I'm going for. You're also seeing really fast third bases. Can't say I'm the biggest fan of that, but you can do it. Yeah, check our refineries, make sure we're good there. We're gonna throw down 2 more reactors here. Yeah, a little bit short on Medivacs, but money's staying really, really low. I don't want a Marauder. And still can't really afford siege mode, so I'm waiting on that. I'm gonna look to take my 3rd base here. And typically you would be moving around with all this stuff. You can do drops and things like that. It's definitely not as aggressive as the other style though. There we go. Again, money's super low. We've got a really strong backbone, super fast upgrades. And we're gonna quickly jump into +2 weapons here as soon as we get the gas for it. We're gonna need depots. So let's do that. Make a bunch of Marines. You can see how heavy our production is. We want to get into +2 as soon as we can here. You can see this doesn't quite feel as smooth as before, but we are spending all our money, which is good. Got a couple of tanks. Usually you wait for about a 3rd tank push out. So get that guy on the way. I'm constantly complaining about depots, but there we go. So you can kind of see you can get a really nice strong army this way. I do prefer the Hellion style. I think it's a lot better because you can be a lot more aggressive early. But that's more of a personal preference. Yeah. Make that into an orbital. And we got +2 coming really fast. Another tank. Usually what you do is when you take your 3rd, you'll add on another factory because then you can afford it. And you're still going to see a pretty beefy army. Now this army is smaller than before, but it's still pretty good. So I got 3 tanks, move out now. I do have to be a little bit more worried about things like infestors and stuff like that. My SCV count is also not going to be quite as good. It's still pretty good, but not quite as good. So grab those guys like that. Keep making Marines. Yeah, I missed all of those guys, so we'll send them all up. Send them up to the front. Keep our depots going. Make sure we throw that guy on a hotkey. And, oh no, he's killing my stuff. So we just kind of siege up. You can do more abusive sieges on some maps, but it's been a while since I've done this style of play. Let's get some more Medivacs going. You can see how it would be a little bit more vulnerable. Actually, don't need that extra depot. You can see how it would be a little bit more vulnerable to Mutilax play, stuff like that. Big advantage is you get a really fast set of upgrades. So, see, we're already on +2, or +2, +1. +3 is about to finish. And we start adding on that factory and get a bunch more barracks now. So we're going to do that. And we're going to end up in exactly the same spot. 9 barracks, I got 2 factories instead. My max out time is 15 minutes, it's not too bad. Upgrades are stronger. My army composition as a whole is probably a little bit stronger. It's definitely stronger than a bio play, that's for sure, so make sure we have vision there. And you're kind of relying on being a little bit light with the tanks. That's what it is, and we're max, so there we go. Really simple run through. I ran through the whole thing just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like, but this is what it is. And we'll scan him. Oh, he's got a creep tumor. Stim all our Marines, run them in. Hey, Marines are overpowered, by the way. So that thing just melts. Alright, so next I'll take a look at the benchmarks for you. We'll have a look at those. Okay, so we're going to talk about some benchmarks for the Hellion Expand. This is a factory first version. There's also another version that includes going command center first. I don't find that version nearly as safe. You have to be an absolutely impeccable player to go for that. So I don't recommend it for most people because there is so much cheese and garbage and stuff like that on the ladder. You see a lot of road rushing and things like that where you'll be vulnerable because you're just not going to have any units. So I definitely recommend going with the factory first. However, Day 9 does a really good job of going over this particular build more or less on his Day 9 daily number 438. So if you want more detail on how to execute a Hellion Expand with fast upgrades, he breaks down a game of Polt, which is really good and really useful. I actually started after I watched that to get into the double upgrades really early myself with this particular play. So definitely check that out. That's Day 9 daily number 438. With that in mind, we're going to talk about how you can do it factory first, so it's a little bit more safe. Now, if you want to go factory first, what you need to do is take your gas on 13, so you still build your barracks first, and then you get your gas right after. You only want to make 1 marine out of the barracks when it finishes, nothing more, and kind of keep your marine behind your wall so it can stay safe. That'll keep you safe from any kind of zerglings or any of that kind of junk. What you want to do then is get your natural. Your natural should come up at about 420, so you want to build that on the high ground because you can't defend it on the low ground. You don't want to have to cancel it. While you're building your natural, you want to make your 4 Hellions. So get the natural first, and then get your 4 Hellions. After you get your 4 Hellions, you want to run them up to his base, dance them around a little bit. Don't just run them into his base and lose them, because that's no good. You need to use your Hellions to tell if he's trying to leave his base, or if he's taking a third, that kind of stuff. You can deny that pretty much all the time with this particular style of play, so it's really good for slowing down a Zerg's third base. Now the next thing you're going to want to do after you get your Hellions is add on barracks number 2 and barracks number 3. After that, you're going to add on your starport. As you're adding on your starport, grab your 2nd and your 3rd gas, and then when you have the extra money, go ahead and grab 2 engineering bays. After that, you're probably going to be able to add on either 2 more barracks or a really fast 3rd command center. That's entirely optional how you want to play that. I prefer to get the barracks first just to stay safe, but you can go ahead and grab that extra command center if you want. That's going to allow you to get really fast +1/+1. You're going to get really fast stim. Your combat shield's going to be at a reasonable time. You're going to be able to jump right into +2/+2 because you're really not spending much. You don't get tanks till later on. You can get tanks once you can kind of afford it and you're working on all your upgrades and it looks good. Then you want to start getting tanks. So don't worry too much about them early. You want to make sure your armory is down with about 1/3 to go in your +1/+1. That way you can jump right into +2/+2. The real strength of this style is you're going to have really fast upgrades. Your army is going to be smaller, but it's going to be a lot more beefy than in the previous one I talked about. Alright, well that's going to wrap up episode number 12 of Bronze to Masters. This is Filter Starcraft. I'm going to be signing off here. Just a couple of quick notes. If you like the videos, hit the like button. Definitely subscribe to me. It's all good when people do that. The other thing is definitely check me out on Twitter if you want to ask me any questions, things like that. Ask me on Twitter, it works really well. The other thing too is there's a thread over on Team Liquid, or you can post in the comment section the replays. So if you have some replays from some cool games you played, post the replays. I want to check them out. It's always good to see how people are improving. Definitely share your stories. It's always a good thing when people are sharing how they're getting better and improving. So I always like reading stuff like that. Anyway, this is Filter Starcraft. I'll talk to you guys next time. The next episode is, of course, going to be Terran versus Terran variations. I've got some really cool stuff planned for that.